Hi, everybody. We are two immigration attorneys here today, and we would like to discuss about the latest developments in Trump administration. I have a very important guest today, my good friend, LaToya, McBean, Pompy. Thanks for coming to the office, LaToya.
Absolutely. I feel so welcomed here. It's wonderful to be here today. We have a lot of important things to discuss.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we thought, while we were talking to each other, we each reach out to our followers and talk about the latest developments. But why don't we come together and talk about everything? Because there's a lot of value in it. When two immigration lawyers talk about the same things, they can have different angles, they can have different approaches, they may have heard other things or read other things. So we wanted to come together and talk about the latest development. So what do you want to start with, LaToya?
Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about, right? We have, first of all, the cloud of fear, right, that this new administration has created with immigration. And we intersect with this fear every day when we meet with our clients, when we sit down and talk to real people who are just looking to either get a lawful status in the United States or even come to the United States or even to start their business here in the United States or grow their company here in the United States. There's just fear everywhere. And so I think for this discussion today, we'll just focus on maybe the key aspects of the changes that this Trump administration has, well, they're implementing these changes as we speak, and how those changes are impacting these real people and companies who just want to be free here in the United States, right?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we can start with the executive orders because those are very important. Those seem to be very important and
Yeah,
may be affecting a lot of people.
right.
And the first one was the birthright citizenship that hit the first. And that is in court now. Basically, Trump is challenging the constitutional interpretation of who is under the jurisdiction of the United States.
Right.
So right now it's in court. There's a preliminary injunction, and everything is as usual. But what do you think is going to happen going forward? I have my ideas, but I want to hear
Yeah,
yours.
of course. I think the birthright citizenship issue is one that we saw coming, right? I mean, it's something that he discussed during the campaign trail, but now that it's here, it's again going back to fear. It's creating a lot of fear in a lot of people about the status of their children who are already here in the United States born, and then babies to be born. I think the intent is to take it as far as it can go, and that's certainly before the US Supreme Court. We knew that from day one it would trigger litigation, which it did, and that litigation would ultimately go all the way up to the US Supreme Court for their consideration. I think it's going to go all the way up to them. And yes, we know we have a very conservative court. But my thinking on this is that there are still one or two justices who have an ego, right? And they want to wrap those individuals, I won't say who they are, right? They want to wrap their head around this unique and interesting question about whether children born of undocumented immigrants are lawful here in the United States, number one, and should be citizens, number two, which is a new issue for the Supreme Court to consider in this narrow context. And I think those with the ego want to make a decision independent of how the Trump administration is seeing this issue.
I agree. It's very much up for grabs. We don't really know what's going to happen, but the possibility of this coming to Supreme Court would be unforeseeable maybe a few years ago. But
Right.
right now, since Supreme Court decides which cases they're going to hear, it may be one of the cases they may want to hear and they may want to decide. And so we'll see how
We'll
it
see.
goes and we'll give the updates as much as possible. Uh, Asylum comes as the next topic in my head. So, what do you think about the asylum part?
So the asylum part is connected to what's happening at the
At the
border,
border.
right? At the border, we see that again, throughout this podcast, the theme of fear is going to be central to the discussion because that's the intent of this administration. So I think the fear of Trump and what would possibly happen if I were to make that trek to America on foot, that's gotten into the minds of people outside of the United States to drive down the numbers at the borders. It's quiet at the border right now, right? There's not a lot of activity happening as far as people coming to the borders seeking asylum, and people are just afraid. They're afraid to do so.
Very
And
afraid.
so, on the one hand, it's great for our system, right? Our immigration system, because with the influx of folks coming in the way that they had been coming in, it really it really slowed down a lot of good cases inside of the United States. And so I think it's going to be a positive impact for those inside of America seeking asylum, right? Is that
We,
your understanding as
exactly,
well?
we are already seeing that happening because, for example, in the last 2 weeks, we've gotten about 10 asylum interviews from the New Jersey office on affirmative asylum cases. So these are the cases who are filed by asylum seekers after they arrive legally to the United States, and they've been waiting for more than 4 years because of what's happening at the border, and it has more emergency. These cases were not granted any interviews, but because of the stoppage at the border and not much going on, now the asylum officers can divert their attention to finally affirmative asylum cases, and it's good for those people who are waiting in the line. So
Right.
I agree with you. If there is going to be a little bit less activity in the border, maybe there's going to be a lot of activity within the United States for the cases that are that are waiting for interviews.
Yeah, that's exactly what we hope to happen, right? Across in asylum offices across the country. Because right now, I think most people who file for an affirmative asylum case, they wait, what, on average 7 or 8 years. Sometimes we have clients come to us who have been waiting up to 10 years for an asylum interview alone because of the significant backlog in the asylum system. It's really awful.
It is true. If you don't follow up your case, it could take 7, 8 years. But what we've been doing lately is that we're waiting for a while and then we're filing for mandamus action. So that's to force the federal government to give you an interview on the asylum application. And we see that about 4 years is a good idea to wait. And then after 4 years, maybe you want to bring a mandamus action. But also, of course, this depends on the case and on the
Absolutely.
office.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's a great strategy.
it is. It is very. It's a very good strategy if you feel that your case is very strong
Right.
and you feel like you waited a long time.
Right. One of the other things that we're tracking and we're expecting to happen is a significant slowdown of case processing, right? Under the Biden years, for many cases, we enjoyed interview waivers. We experienced very fast approvals. Some cases were approved in 4 months, 2 months, 6 months, and those were glory days, right? Now, under this new administration, one of the things that we're expecting to happen because of all of the different policy changes that are taking place now is for the system to slow down for everyone, right? How are you thinking about or approaching, or what strategies are you thinking about with respect to your cases that would kind of push things along, so to speak, for some of your clients? Because we're all expecting a slowdown, everyone. And we have our ideas, of course, of what we're going to be doing at McBean Law. But what are you thinking these days?
Well, I think the most important thing is to give the correct information, right information to our clients. Just, this is a new era and we have to be prepared for the new administration. That's the first thing. And second thing, I think setting the expectations right, because some people think that immigration applications and processes become overnight or approved overnight. This usually is not the case and is probably not going to happen with this new administration. So I think preparation as early as possible, filing as early as possible, using one of the case expedite systems such as premium processing.
Right.
If it works, it doesn't work all the time, or if it doesn't work in your interest all the time. If it works in your interest, it's a good idea. So a combination of these things and never leaving things to the last minute, which a lot of our clients sometimes do. I think those are the things we would recommend, and we started utilizing a lot. For example, let's say you are an H-1B holder, and the deference memo is removed now. So every new extension application will be considered as a new H-1B application. So the idea is, because we know this, we want to file the H-1B extension as early as possible, which is at least 6 months before the expiration date, so that if we get a challenge from USCIS, we will have time to maneuver and do something else, being able to maybe set forth a different strategy. So that's what I mean by acting early, strategizing yourself, setting the expectations, and maybe using premium processing in that application to get an early result. What do you think?
That's very smart. And so from our standpoint, what we're going to be doing at McBean Law, of course, the strategizing is always part of what we do every day for our clients, but we're going to be very aggressive, very aggressive. I think now is the time for lawyers to really be lawyers. Whether you're an immigration lawyer or you're practicing criminal defense or something, everyone has to really rise up at this time, because we're seeing so many attempts to undermine our due process rights and other rights. So for us at McBean Law, we're looking at every case very thoughtfully to determine what is the legal strategy. And then secondly, once a case is filed, we're looking to see, okay, is this a wrongful rejection or an erroneous denial, which we're expecting this administration to do more of, right? To deny cases, to delay things, to frustrate the process. We're looking to buffer, at every attempt to slow our cases down with a wrongful denial or a notice of intent to deny the case or a request for evidence. We're looking to attack all of those right away and get those moving for our clients. I think this time requires a lot of grit, a lot of patience, a lot of strategy, and certainly the willingness to fight and push harder, because that's really where things are right now.
And also thinking smart
Thinking smart.
of different strategies, right? Because
Exactly.
just because USCIS said something in an RFE or in a denial doesn't mean
It's
that
correct.
it's correct.
Exactly.
So you have to fight for it. So there's something I say in the office all the time. I said, if you get an RFE and if you got angry, this is a good start. Because
That's right. Yes.
because you have to get angry to
Right,
be
of
able
course.
to fight with it. If you think the RFE is right, then that's probably not a good
You're
sign.
missing something. Exactly.
Right. So this is the idea all the time. How can I lay out the best strategy, even when you get an RFE, or even before you file the case? What's the best strategy? Because you have to think forward, and they're not there to basically approve the cases
Right.
most of the time, right?
Right.
So that's what you have to think about and strategize. And I like the idea of being aggressive and being zealous for your clients all the time. This is the right time to do it, and that's a wonderful idea.
Exactly. And just going back to the border discussion for just a bit in asylum, all of that is really connected to a bigger or broader strategy by the administration now to usher more people into the removal process, into deportation, with new policies such as the expedited or fast track deportation policy, which could impact many newcomers being those who entered the United States over the past 2 years through the various Biden parole programs. Those individuals are particularly vulnerable at this time because the administration, essentially, it's crazy when you really think about it, but they're essentially thinking about stripping away due process rights from individuals who are in process for maybe asylum or in process for a green card. Cut their process short, and then place them in removal proceedings. For some people, it will be an expedited fast track, and for others, they would be issued a notice to appear and go through a slower process
Right.
in removal.
I know. So there's some discussion on this, and it's not so clear yet. But
Yeah.
let's say if somebody, entered with a CBP1 application, came to the U.S., filed an asylum application, they are under proceedings. So basically, according to due process, they cannot be removed by expedited removal. They have to see a judge first. That's my understanding. But is that is there something different that you see in that?
No, you're absolutely right with that. However, for some of these individuals who are in process to see a judge, well, before they even see a judge or appear for their first hearing, there's an opportunity that the administration has to administratively dismiss their removal case,
Okay.
cut short the due process, and then do the fast track deportation. Now you have others who entered on the various parole programs. Many of those individuals are not in removal. Some of them had applied for TPS, temporary protected status, or asylum, or even a green card, and they're waiting. Well, the administration recently paused. Remember, they started the process. They paused all of those applications, including their applications for a work permit and the I-130s. They paused everything for those individuals due to what they say is fraud. They're looking at fraud in the system. But what some of us believe to be really going on, and they've already put their cards on the table. They've told us what they're intending to do through a DHS memo. They're intending to issue notices to appear in immigration court to begin the deportation process for those individuals as well. So this is where lawyers have to really pay attention to what's going on and to fight for their clients when these things really begin to materialize.
These are vulnerable communities, the
Vulnerable,
TPS,
yes.
the paroles, etc. So, for example, there is now talk about maybe not extending the U4U program for Ukraine.
Right.
So we have to come up with different strategies to see how we can keep these clients here if that is not extended. So
Exactly.
that's another thing about the strategy is thinking forward, right? You have to make your plans as soon as possible and think about plan A, B, C, so that if one avenue closes, you can move to the next one. Maybe that's the other one that we need to talk about.
Absolutely. Strategizing for instance, if TPS is ending for your country, well, are you eligible potentially for an asylum application or something else? Lawyers certainly can screen their clients for other options, but now is the time to really start meeting with an attorney to plan ahead and think about what's coming up for you.
I had a TPS client who had also a perm application going on his behalf. And while the TPS was pending, the green card application was approved. So he adjusted status in the
Perfect.
United States.
Yeah.
So he was very smart in that he didn't just stay with the TPS. He found an employer to sponsor him. So that was a very good story for him.
That's excellent. And sometimes people don't realize that you could have more than one process going at the same time, and certain processes are connected to a timeline, right? You must file by a certain timeline in order for it to really work, and you must file before you go out of status. So that's excellent. So only an immigration lawyer, of course, can help you to figure out what the different strategies are and be very aggressive for you and just get everything going for you all at the same time.
I usually tell my clients, there's a short-term plan and then there's a long-term plan. Both can work together. Sometimes they think there can only be one plan. Is that, like you said, there could be a non-immigrant visa or a TPS status at the same time. There could be a perm application running at the background or an asylum application. So that could be your plan B. So I think these are the times where you need experience in immigration law and strategizing in immigration law the most, don't you think?
Absolutely. I just recommend that if anyone is going through an immigration process and you have any concern, of course, about how it could play out for you, well, sit down, talk with a professional to figure out whether you should really be as concerned as you are. Because for some people, obviously, they have a straightforward process. Maybe they're not going to face some of the bigger challenges that we're discussing on this podcast, of course, but only an immigration attorney, I think, can help them sort through those fears and get them on the right track.
Exactly. There's also a little bit talk about enhancing the visa vetting around the consulates. So this is basically taking more time to review the applications at the consulates and slowing down the process. Uh, is this administration's attempt to slow down the visa process? Does this mean, and a lot of people confuse this, does this mean the new administration is not going to issue visas anymore? So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so first of all, I think that there's an attempt to cripple the system, the visa processing, globally, right? I think that what what is happening now, first of all, they're cutting staff at U.S. embassies and consulates globally, and that will slow down these cases. But it doesn't mean that you cannot apply for a visa and come to America. That will still be going on, right, for many people over the next 4 years. It's just that the process will be frustrated in many places, and there will be a bigger backlog that these embassies will have to get out of, so to speak. So slower processing of cases, but it doesn't. Although there are still things that can be done, right, like filing a mandamus, being aggressive to push or force that next action in the case. So we'll still certainly be able to do that for clients who are waiting outside of the U.S. But you could still obviously apply, right, and folks will be interviewed as well.
That's the idea. We started with talking about fear. This is the fear people have. I'm not going to be able to get the visa because Trump is not going to give any visas. This is not true.
That's not true.
You have to apply, you have to prove that you can get the visa, that you're eligible. The fact that you cannot get it most of the time, let's say a tourist visa or an F1 visa, it's because of 214B, because you have no real ties with your country. That has nothing to do with the Trump administration. That has to do with you
Exactly,
and
yeah.
the situation your country is in economically, financially, etc. So let's not confuse those two things. I think just because there is fear, we shouldn't stop what we're doing. As long as it's legal and we deserve to do it, I think that's the idea we should give to our clients as well.
Yeah, and focus on building a strong application packet, right? Build a strong case, build a strong case, and then prepare yourself for that embassy interview and go in and do well, right? If you focus on those aspects and your eligibility and making sure you have everything the embassy needs and you're a good candidate for that visa, well, you will be successful and get an opportunity to come here. However, this is a good segue actually into breaking news. I don't know when this is going to go out, but it's breaking news, which has to do with the travel bans
Yes.
that are coming up. We know that under Trump 1.0, he attempted to ban several Muslim majority countries from having their foreigners travel here, their nationals travel to the United States, and he was unsuccessful through litigation by the ACLU and other organizations, I believe. But we're expecting them to bring that back, right? Because Trump told us on day one, right, through executive order,
That he
he's
was
going to
thinking about it.
he's thinking about it. And there was going to be like a 60-day review period. And now we're at that 60-day, we're approaching the 60-day mark, right?
I think they said Afghanistan and Pakistan first, and then the others may add afterwards.
Right. So we don't know right now, today, of course,
We
with
don't.
much certainty which countries will potentially be on this list, but we do know it's coming. Other news sources like New York Times drilled down on this issue, and they talked a little bit more about the fact that there are countries that are characterized as like under a red category versus a yellow. There's just some more details that some news outlets are going into that we're waiting for the full details, obviously, to be rolled out by the Trump administration directly to figure out or find out what the true categorization will be of these countries. But it's coming, and it's a little scary, but we're expecting lawsuits, right?
Exactly. I think this is one of the areas where they're going to get the most protests. If you remember the first time, there was people waiting in
Pushback.
airlines,
Yep.
in airports, and there was a lot of people protesting. Even Manhattan streets were full of
I
demonstrators.
remember.
So
Yeah.
this one is going to be tough. There's going to be a lot of challenge to that one.
Of course, of course. The other big issue that is on people's minds these days is the fact that they're trying to revive a registration requirement, which under our law, it's there, guys. It's there. It's in the INA that foreigners must register with the government. And this registration process involves a fingerprinting process and them knowing your name and the fact that you are here in America really is what it's about.
But who is it for?
Right. And so that's the thing. It's a lot of people have already registered, so to speak. If individuals came to the US with a visa, they've already registered. If people have a green card, they're registered, right? So very many people are registered. Those who they consider to not have registered yet are people who came into the country illegally without inspection. They snuck in somehow to America and they're here without any document to the US, to the DHS showing that they are here in the United States. Those are the people who this is targeting.
So people who they think are in shadows,
Right.
basically.
Yes. Right.
So,
Yeah.
and then the question is, why now? Because this law has been in presence for such a long time, but it wasn't really followed up or enforced, right? But this administration is now trying to bring this back. Well, it's a little different from the other things because it's already in the law.
Yeah.
That it
It's
was
a
not,
requirement.
It's a requirement,
Yeah.
and the prior governments were not prior administrations were not enforcing it, but this administration can enforce it. So they have a more legitimate claim to this, I think.
We saw this after 9/11 through the NSEERS registration system that ended in 2016. That focused on Muslim majority countries. And what we learned from that first registration practice is that it's really targeted. Number one, they're trying to get certain individuals to register for the purpose of placing them in deportation proceedings, in removal. That's what we saw happen with the NSEERS program. And so, as immigration lawyers, obviously we can't advise our clients not to follow the law, right? So it's one of those tricky areas where a person needs to sit one-on-one privately with their lawyer and discuss the registration system and whether or not they should register. It's not something we, can tell the general public to do or not to do, but it is the law, certainly.
Yes.
The intent, I think, is, again, to place people in the deportation
Exactly.
process.
Yes. Well, this maybe is a nice segue to the NTA policy. We know very little about it, but maybe it's good to discuss about it because NTA, which is Notice to Appear, is a document which tells our clients to appear in court in removal proceedings. So that's the start of a deportation or removal proceeding.
Right.
And it usually happens when you get denied of a benefit and then you get referred to the court. But USCIS doesn't do this usually. It's not a right that they apply all the time. So the new NTA memo talks about when if a benefit is denied, then the NTA may or will be issued. So what is your take on that?
So my understanding so far, and I'm going to get into greater details about this memo down the road, but my understanding is that if an individual applies for a benefit, a green card, and they are denied and they have no lawful status in the United States, meaning that they're not on the F1 student visa, they're not in status, well, they will be placed in removal. And that's pretty strong, right? Because we know that millions of applications are processed each year by USCIS. So, and we also know that quite a bit are denied. Most people are approved, of course, but for those who are denied, is the government now saying that they're going to place all of them in removal? They said this before, right? They made these threats
Yes.
before. And how did that work out?
It didn't work out. During the first Trump administration, this memo came out, and they didn't enforce it because I think it's too difficult to enforce. There's so many other people that you want to focus on. Trump promised that he's going to follow and he's going to deport. And if you want to do this for people who came here legally and they were trying to change status, adjust status, it didn't work out, well, they can basically leave. But if you are forcing them to go to court now, it's going to be unbelievable. A huge number of NTAs clogging the court system.
And the court system is already clogged, right? There's
It is already clogged.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's almost 4 million people in removal proceedings. And now they're saying that, well, we're going to usher more people. We're going to usher more people. Well, our perspective is, okay, if you decide to usher those people into removal, well, we're going to attack. We're going to fight it, because there are ways to dismiss the case. There are ways to continue a green card process with USCIS, despite the fact that they've ushered you into removal. There's a way to appeal a decision, a denial of a case. There are ways to fight these things, but we as lawyers have to be creative, we have to be strategic, and we have to have the willingness to fight.
Exactly. So one of the things that we couldn't find, well, actually we are fighting now, is the form updates. What did you think about the overnight form changes on USCIS's website without any grace period, without any advance notification? Because this is not the first time they're changing forms, but what usually happens is they allow you to adjust your software, your staff to actually get used to the new forms. There's usually a 30 to 60-day period where they allow you to go to the new forms. They even give you grace periods where you can file the old forms until such date. This time, it's an announcement. Starting tomorrow, this is what happens. What happened to the maybe hundreds of applications prepared for other applicants who filed those cases, and now those cases are going to be denied because they were using the old versions. What do you think about that?
I thought they were playing dirty. They've already started, right? This again is the attempt to frustrate the process and make it more difficult for people. It was crazy. I remember that night I jumped on Teams and I texted my colleagues, the supervising attorney, and I said, "Oh my God, have you seen this? We're going to have to warn some of our clients that the applications that are en route to USCIS might be rejected or denied." It was crazy. It was dirty, and it was very tricky. And all for what reason? They made very minimal changes to those applications, changes that could have waited, right, by giving us a grace period to make the adjustment. It was awful. And they did it also, I think, with the 2 days later, they also announced additional applications that were effective immediately. Again, no grace period. So it's undermining the effort that people are making genuinely to become lawful in the U.S., but it's just part of the tricks.
It also reminds you that you really need professional help with these things.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to do this on your own, you will not be able to follow all the updates, and you're going to miss something. I mean, even we are afraid of missing something at this point with so many changes and updates, and we're trying to keep up, we're trying to follow up. We have our CLEs, we have our emails from American Immigration Lawyers Association. We're following up everything, but you shouldn't try to do it on your own. One question that came to me from a follower was, what about the applications that are pending? Do we need to update the forms in those? Of course not, because this has to do with new applications going forward. So you don't need to update anything if the case is pending.
Right. No, that's a misconception. There's no way that if an application is already pending with USCIS, it's almost impossible to update it, right? It's over. It's in their court. They're working on the case. We just have to wait. And if the government comes out with subsequent changes to an application, well, they are still obligated to continue the adjudication process on the application that's pending before them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there is a few developments at the consulate side as well. Department of State, they went back to the old memo of the old memo about the interview waivers. Maybe you will remember. First, it was if you're applying from the same visa category, and if your visa expired within the last 12 months, You can file, you can get an interview waiver, and you can get your passport, you can get your visa and passport via mail. So then it went up to 48 months and included all the visa categories. So if you had an F1, for example, and if you were filing for, if you're applying for a B2 visa, and if your F1 expired within the last 48 months, you can get that visa without an interview at the consulate. Now what they did is they went back to square one, and it's not 48 months anymore. It's just 12 months, and if it's in the same visa category. So interview waivers are being cut down. So with the extreme vetting and with this together, do we see a lot
And
of
fewer staff,
and fewer
right? The
staff?
staffing changes, right? You're adding one thing onto another to do what? Create a bottleneck in the system. Just slow it down.
Yeah. We don't know how this is going to affect the consulates, but we will see the effect soon, I think.
Right.
So again, word of advice is apply as early as you can, because most people think that around the world a lot of consulates give these appointments 8 to 12 months down the road, so they think that I shouldn't apply. Well, that's not the case. You should apply and then try to move the appointment date to an earlier date,
Right.
because this happens 95% of the time.
Right.
Either you do it or the system does it itself. So apply as early as you can is the best advice.
What do you think about what President Trump is thinking, I should say, about students? Do you think he is, or the administration is carving out an opportunity for foreign students to maybe get a green card or lawful status in the U.S.? What do you think is going on there with his thinking?
So I was so interested in this. I read the transcripts of his actual speech, and it's very vague. First of all, he says, we want to give green cards to these students because they come to the US, they cannot work, and they go back to their countries. And then he goes on, and I'm not just talking about bachelor degree, I'm also talking about associate degrees. He doesn't use the word associate degrees, but he says 2-year school. So, so with this broad sense, you get the idea that, if you are a graduate of an associate school, if you have an associate degree or a bachelor degree or a master degree, you're going to automatically get a green card. And well, actually, that's a brilliant idea. And many people thought because he's cutting people coming from the border, he wants to have more qualified people. But as you know, he needs to change a lot of laws to do this. I mean, where is that green card category now? There
Right.
isn't.
There isn't one.
There is all these categories: employment-based, family-based, not for students. So you cannot give green cards just with an executive order. I don't know. I think the intention is really good, and I think we're losing a lot of talent from the U.S. just because people, after graduating from schools, just because they get a 1-year OPT or 3-year OPT on the STEM, we're losing a lot of talent to other countries, to Canada, to China. I believe this. So it's a good intention. I don't see the legal framework for it, and he didn't announce one.
No, he didn't announce one, but I thought it was interesting that about a week ago, during a cabinet meeting, he was talking about the gold card, right? He was talking about that $5 million gold card, and he somehow connected students with it. What he said was that here you have universities, well, not universities, here you have businesses who want to hire talented, smart college graduates, but there's a problem. These people don't have a lawful long-term status in the United States. And so if these companies somehow bought the gold card and connect the gold card opportunity with these students or give the gold card to the students, it will be a benefit to the company somehow. Now, do you really think, in my opinion, I don't think any company is going to spend $5 million on a college graduate. I don't know. You tell, what do you think?
This announcement is so mind-blowing. It just makes your head spin around,
Yeah.
and it gives you a headache.
Right. Yeah.
Because let's think about this. This is a nice segue to gold card, by the way, right? So let's think about it. So if the gold card is going to give a green card to a person for $5 million, how is the student going to be benefiting from this? If Apple is to buy a $5 million gold card, how many students can they put in
Right,
that
or how
program?
many students will be covered under maybe one $5 million green
Exactly.
card
So so we
opportunity.
so
So
he's
strange.
so he's talking about two different things here. You
Yeah.
know, bringing in millionaires outside of the U.S. by exempting them from worldwide taxation and giving them green cards, and he's talking about selling these green cards. You know, the EB-5 program is not selling the green card. It's you have to actually go through a process, and if the project is successful, you get the green card. Here, like in many other countries, you are selling the green card. So he's talking about that, and I understand that. But to tie this into Apple and students and how Apple can buy the $5 million card to get students work for the that you know that's where you get the headache.
There's a
It's
clear
very
disconnect there, right?
it's very confusing.
Yeah, extremely.
Now, would it be good if companies had a power like that? It would have been amazing, right? If they can pay and they can file for new employees, they will see if there's any benefit in that. But those two concepts really don't work well together. And there's also another view on this. There's another approach on this because he said he wanted to replace the EB-5 program, but EB-5 must stay by court order until September 2026. So whoever applies for EB-5 until September 2026 will be adjudicated. So he cannot change that.
Right.
Somebody, I saw a commentator saying that he's thinking about the gold card in addition to the EB-5 program. So if that's the case, that may be a good avenue for bringing a lot of income into the United States, and also a way to maybe keep students here if that strategy works, if the companies will be able to buy the green card. It's a lot of vague, ambiguous. You know what I think? I think he just says something and then he disappears, and we try to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
In the meantime, he changed his
He
mind already.
changes his mind. But what I'm curious about whether he'll change on is dreamers,
Yes.
right? Because in his mind, and I think he also connects students with dreamers somehow. I don't know. But he has said that he wants to help dreamers. He wants them to be able to have a lawful pathway or a green card here in the United States, and that he's willing to work with Democrats on Capitol Hill to make it happen. And so just recently, the DREAM Act was reintroduced in the House, and folks are saying, well, okay, let's see what you can do now. Here it is. Here's the legislation. Let's act on it. Let's give them lawful status in the U.S. So there's a big push. I would really like to see that happen.
That would be amazing,
That
because
for
those
DACA
kids
holders
are,
and
yeah.
dreamers, they have been waiting. It's been like yo-yo. It's been so emotional for
Yes.
them. It's time to settle it. And I'd really like to see Trump say, okay, yeah, the Democrats couldn't do it. That's what he said before. The Democrats couldn't do it. And I don't understand why they couldn't do it. Well, okay, are you saying you will do it? Okay, please do it. That's what I'd love to see happen.
You know, there's some changes with Trump with respect to the first administration. For example, I mean, I hope this happens with DACA, but for example, with H-1Bs, he gave hell to H-1B employers and employees in the first administration. Now he says he likes the H-1B. I think there's a lot of business people around him now
Right, of course.
telling him that this is a really good visa, and we didn't see any restrictions on the H-1B visa up until now. You know, that was one of the first things that he did when he came in the first time. But right now, H-1B seems to be enjoying a little more comfortable ride than the other visa types.
Right, although there has been a lot of surprises, right?
There
Since
has been.
January 20th, we're all trying to keep up with all of these changes and ideas, some new ideas like that gold card. I don't think any of us really saw that come in.
No.
It's so absurd, so out there. So, but yeah, the business community right now is, well, some aspects of the business community right now is enjoying kind of like a little breather. But I think they're still maybe a little anxious, wondering, okay, are we next? What is something going to happen
I
in
think so.
another few months? What's going to happen? Are we going to be under attack soon?
Yeah.
right? I think there's that feeling too, that concern that
Again,
let's
fear.
just wait and see. Yeah,
Yes.
there's the fear, you know. I think everyone's feeling that way. Even
Yeah.
immigration lawyers are concerned about how all of this is going to impact their clients, their cases. But my thinking is, as immigration lawyers, we've got to be very aggressive. We've got to fight. We've got to use our platform to spread good information to people, to help them to understand their rights, to equip them, and to give them good information so that they can make decisions.
So this has been such a good conversation.
Yeah.
I think I've learned a lot, and hearing different views is always very important. But there is, as we discussed before we start shooting, there's a lot of misconception.
Mm.
Maybe we can talk about a few misconceptions before we close this discussion. What is one misconception you want to talk about?
One of the big things that, or big misinformation, I should say, that's out there has to do with green card holders. I think with all of the changes happening, some green card holders are feeling insecure. They thought, oh, okay, I'm fine, I'm secure, I'm safe because I have lawful status here in the United States. But now they're hearing all this talk about what's happening with green card holders and travel. And so they're very concerned about that. And so I think one of the big misconception out there is that green card holders should not travel at all, because if they travel, they're going to be detained at the airport when they try to come back into the US. And that's false. That's not true. Green card holders are safe, but you have to remember that you have limitations to that status, right? There are limitations to being a resident. And one such limitation is you cannot stay outside of the United States for a very long time. And so, for a very long time in immigration law means longer than 6 months, because if you stay out longer than 6 months, you're going to potentially encounter problems coming back in. You still have a right to re-enter, right? But it's going to be a little bit more challenging, particularly under this administration. So that's one big thing. And the law makes a way for green card holders to be able to stay out for a long time, even up to 2 years. But they must apply for a reentry permit
Yes.
before leaving the US. So that's one big issue, I think, that I keep hearing over and over again. What about you?
My biggest one would be Trump is not going to give green cards anymore. Trump
Mm.
is not going to give visas anymore. The
Mm-hmm.
visas are going to be denied. The green cards are going to be denied.
Yeah.
Will I be able to file for my spouse? Can I be naturalized? So there is this, again, it has to do with the fear that people think that Trump can do enormous things in immigration law. The law is still the law. I mean, it's the legal process. He may slow down a few things. With executive orders, he may change things in his power. He may try to change things that he cannot change with an executive power, and then those are going to be litigated. But the fact remains, this is an immigrant country.
Yep.
There's a lot of visas available, the green cards available. So know your rights and also apply for them as soon as possible. Don't lose time, and don't let this fear affect you or what is right for you. I think that's the biggest misconception. For example,
Yeah.
if I go to the consulate, now it's Trump administration, I'm not going to be able to get a tourist visa or an F1 visa or an H1, L1, O1, you name it. I mean, no, that's not why Trump is elected, and he doesn't have so much say in those procedures because it's settled law. There's a lot of requirements that you go through, especially with petition-based cases where USCIS approves it first. We go through a lot, right?
Yeah.
You file it, it's approved, or there's sometimes an RFE,
Yeah.
you file it, and then you get it approved. The consulate has a very little say on those petition-based approvals. If it's a 214B denial, ties with your own country, think about what you can change in your own circumstances. Uh, get a better job, maybe, and apply. Maybe apply if you were single when you applied. Get married and then apply, maybe. So there's a lot of misconception where people get a denial on something and just blame it on the Trump administration, whereas it has to do with you or your economic conditions in your country.
Right.
So that would be the biggest thing that I would say, misconception.
Another misconception that is out there is I'm going to lose my citizenship, right? Denaturalization. That's the big word that has been thrown around a lot lately. And so there's a lot of fear by some US citizens that they're going to lose their citizenship because the threat is there. The threat was made by Stephen Miller, high-ranking official in the Trump administration, who said that they're going to really ramp things up with denaturalization. And what I think a lot of people need to understand is that denaturalization, first of all, is a very complex process
Very
and
difficult.
very, very difficult. And in order for the government to really ramp it up, it's going to take a Herculean effort. It's going to take a lot of resources, and it will take time to do that. And so, for most people who have U.S. citizenship, you're safe, you're fine, they're fine. There's not going to be an attack on you to strip you of your citizenship. So don't worry about it. Yeah. Both of us share a lot of content on YouTube. And so if you're out there and you're concerned about denaturalization, you can watch our videos on that subject. But denaturalization, there are very specific grounds for it. And again, most people do not have to worry about this.
And it's not been done a lot. Let's
No, not
also
at all.
remind people
Yeah.
about that. I mean, the government can use their resources for much better activities than trying to denaturalize someone. So it's not a procedure that the government uses a lot. So that's also important. So one of the misconceptions I see is when people get stuck with an application and it takes a long time, they think that they don't, well, maybe they don't think that they have an alternative. For example, I'll give you an example. There's a lot of family-based applications where a U.S. citizen files for a sibling, a sister or a brother. You know, those take about 17 years right
Yeah.
now. And they keep asking me, it's been 8 years, can we not expedite the process? Well, you cannot expedite the process because it has to do with visa numbers. But what you can do is you can try a different method. For example, if this person waiting outside of the US is a skilled worker or a non-skilled worker, and if you want to sponsor this person for your business, for your family's business, or for your friend's business, there's a legitimate job that needs to be done. You cannot find US workers, green card holders. You want to file for this person a labor certification, a perm application, and you can get this person here maybe in 3 to 4 years. Now, when I say 3 to 4 years to other clients, they say, oh, it's too long. But when you compare the 3 or 4 years to 16 years,
Right, yeah.
it's
For those who are when you compare it for those who are waiting in a family preference category that takes 17 years or 15 years, it's like, oh, let's get started on this right away.
Exactly.
And then there's the national interest waiver, the EB-2 process too, for individuals to self-petition. If you have the right skills and background, you could actually do this on your own. And then there's the E2. There are a number of ways of coming to the United States faster. But now, with everything that's going on and everything that we've discussed today, with the process, we're expecting the process to be slowed down. You've got to get started. Now is really the time to start. It's not really the time to just sit back and just observe and wait and see, right? Although in some contexts it makes sense to wait and see what will happen. But if you're out there and you have skills and you have an opportunity to get an employment visa to come to America sooner rather than later, get started now.
For example, we're doing an EB1 application for a client whose EB2 is already approved right now because he doesn't want to wait for the visa numbers. And he seems qualified for the EB1. So there's all these different scenarios that you can run by an experienced immigration attorney and see what works for you, what works for your best interest.
Absolutely. Wow, this was such a good discussion. I
It was.
feel like we could keep going and going.
Maybe we could go another hour.
Yes, right. We've got to do this again,
We should,
right?
yes.
I think that the ideas that we shared today and the policy changes that we summarized for you guys are the key ones, the key things that you really need to know now. It took us time, of course, a lot longer to learn these things and to read these executive orders, policy memos, and all these other things that we had to read to prepare ourselves and to stay abreast of everything that's happening now. And this talk or this discussion just summarized it for you guys. So I found this very valuable.
I found this very valuable too. Thank you so much for accepting my
Absolutely.
offer. And I know it's hard for you to come to the city these days with the traffic, with the congestion, and people who live in the suburbs don't want to come to the city a lot, including me, by the way. I live in New Jersey, but
Right.
After 25 years of commuting to the New York City, I feel like it's a little bit too much anymore. But this is a Saturday. LaToya was very nice enough to come to the office, and we were able to have this very fruitful, I think, discussion, which I think I learned a lot too. So I hope we can do this again.
Absolutely,
And thank you so
yes.
much for coming. By the way, we both have our YouTube channels, our Instagram accounts, where we try to share this information as much as possible. Please follow us also, because sometimes things are very quick and we try to do it on social media. And then I don't know how you handle it, but usually when I do something on YouTube, it's more of an analysis of what happened. I wait a little bit, figure out what happens, and then just speak about it. I talk about developments, yes, but a detailed analysis is usually in the YouTube channel. I don't know how you handle it.
So for YouTube, we have sometimes we have live shows talking about breaking news, and then a Q&A to follow up with the breaking news or big policy changes. I like to talk about policy a lot. And then, of course, there are educational videos, right, that goes into a narrow topic. But certainly, social media is one of the best ways of following the work that we're doing, because it's very easy for us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook to share information with you in a short way that makes sense for you. So follow both of us on social media, get into our stories, learn a little bit about our life and our practice and the work that we're doing for our clients.
Yes. All right. So with that, we could say thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you liked it. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments section and we will try to respond to them as much as we can. Please follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and although I don't have TikTok, I think you have TikTok, right?
You should be on TikTok.
I should be on TikTok.
I'm going to show him how to get started on TikTok after this.
You know what the problem is? I have a 16-year-old daughter and she said, Dad, you should never be on TikTok. I think she finds me very boring. So.
Oh, no. You've got, we'll get you on TikTok.
Okay. So we hope to see you on next video. See you soon.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.